We'll get to as many questions as we can this morning. Let's start with Audrey Snyder with The Athletic. Go ahead, Audrey.
Hey Drew, thanks for your time. How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm wondering how you feel like you've done so far this spring in terms of grasping what Andy's kind of throwing at you, and how comfortable do you feel right now with this offense?
Yeah, I feel really comfortable right now, and I think it's the way that the offensive staff has been installing everything. Like it's not only me and the quarterbacks that feel comfortable with everything, but I think it's really all the skill positions, specifically like with all the different pass schemes and then up front on the offensive line. I think they're doing a really good job in the run game and being prepared for all the different run schemes that we've been running throughout the spring. But I feel really comfortable right now, and I think the biggest thing has been like we're getting to the same plays that we've been doing all spring, but through different formations, shifts, and motions, things of that nature. So everybody's learning the concepts and like not just one part of the concept, they're learning the full concept. So we can kind of get to the point, hopefully, like towards the end of the spring cycle and moving into fall camp where all the receivers can be plug and play at all the positions. So not just a H, but they're not just an X, they can play H, X, and Z, and even Y if we need to, based on personnel packages. But I think we're doing a really good job on the offensive end right now.
Ben Jones and then Tyler, you're on deck.
Hey Drew, how's it going?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. My understanding is that Andy's got a pretty interesting concept of space on the field in terms of how an offense uses that space. How has your own interpretation of space on the field evolved over the course of your career? Are you looking at where defenders are or where they aren't, where offensive players are or where they will be? How has that sort of changed for you over the last few years?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the concept that you're running. Because right now it's more of like, okay, we're anticipating a lot more things just because the concepts make it easy to set our eyes in one spot and kind of see through certain lanes, for a lack of a better term, see through the lanes, and then you can determine, okay, are you gonna like throw the ball, or are you gonna move on to the next progression in the read? So I think it's in terms of that, and Coach K is always big with distortion and creating a lot of space for us on the offensive end, getting us into open space, one-on-one opportunities for us, and show off our abilities as ball carriers and catch or pass catchers too. So I think he does a great job of presenting us opportunities of making plays in space and getting us into those opportunities throughout practices.
Let's go to Tyler Donahue and then Johnny, you're on deck.
Good morning, Drew. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for the time today.
Yep,
I
no
wanted to
problem.
ask, sure. I wanted to ask about Keandre Lambert-Smith. He's a guy that you've gotten to know really well. Obviously, he was the receptions leader last year, but he had kind of a tough end of the season, at least statistically. I'm curious what you've seen from him this spring semester. James Franklin mentioned last night that he feels like he's flashed more consistently this spring camp. Can you kind of take us into where he is right now within your offense and coming off of, again, a finish to last season that left a lot of people wondering what was next for him?
Yeah, I think what Dre's done a really good job of is just being, like Coach Franklin said, very consistent throughout the spring, making the routine plays routine, and then obviously he has a lot of talent with him, so he makes some like pretty spectacular plays. And he's one of the better guys we have in like angle tackle drills and things of that nature, like making guys miss one on one and making guys miss in space. He does a really good job, and I think the more ways we can get the ball to him on the perimeter and let him showcase those skills, the better for the offense, because he'll pick up yardage and he'll get his touches and he'll make things happen out of nothing. And he again, he's just been very consistent all spring. I think his leadership has definitely stepped up, being more of a vocal and a lead by example type of guy for the younger receivers in that room. And I think just the whole receiver room as a whole has done a great job this spring of taking that next step of where we want to be as an offense.
Let's go Johnny McGonigal and then Daniel Gallen.
Drew, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Julian Fleming said last night that obviously he has a relationship with you. You guys talk a lot. How would you characterize or describe the relationship that you have with Julian since he, enrolled back in January? And where have you kind of seen him progress and develop in terms of an understanding and a rapport with him through this spring camp?
Yeah, I mean, me and Julian have a really good relationship. We have lockers right across from each other, so we're always in there together before practices and things of that nature. And even on our off days, we're always in there. Yeah, I mean, Julian's a great receiver, but I think he brings a certain toughness and like mentality to that receiver room in general, where he's just gonna go out and be consistent, do his job, do whatever the coaches ask him to do, no matter if it's involving him in the pass game or he's blocking on the perimeter for screens on the perimeter or the running backs getting out on the perimeter. So he brings a toughness to that room that I think is really good. And then I think again, Julian is a very pro like guy. Has a very good mentality to him, and his work ethic and his habits away from the field. Is always putting in extra work. I always see him bringing along other receivers with him to get extra work on the jugs, and he's always asking me for after practice, getting some reps that he will want to have back from that practice. Just repping those routes on air, doing the same look that he got throughout practice that maybe he could have done something better with. So I think just from that aspect, he's been really good, and I love being around him. He's a great guy to be around.
Let's go Daniel Gallon and then Frank Bodani.
Appreciate the time this morning, Drew. We've heard from some of the defensive players about how going up against this offense in practice is really, stressing their eyes, stressing their communication. In terms of this new system, how do you see it affecting opposing defenses through practice so far this spring?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we talk about on the offensive end is creating stress and applying pressure and stress to the defense, whether that be pre-snap or post-snap. So we have a lot of shifts and motions that we've been doing, which really makes it hard on the defense because they got to communicate everything. Like it's just a simple motion or shift for us, but then they gotta communicate like, okay, we're going from like 2-by-2 formation to 3-by-1 back to 2-by-2. And it's just a lot of communication that puts a lot of stress on them. And you can just kind of expose defenses and like tie them into certain coverages that you want them in. And I think the route concepts too have been a huge help too, like creating more separation versus man coverage, doing a great job with all that stuff. And I think that just comes back to the scheme. And again, like it's going to be good for our defense to see it right now because they'll probably see it throughout the season with how much shifts and motions that, are going to be present throughout college football this year. So I think it's just really good for both sides of the ball to get work at this. But it's really good going against the defense every day too. They present a lot of challenges. Really good scheme, obviously different from the last 2 years, but really good players and really good scheme on that side of the ball too. So it's just iron sharpens iron at this point.
Let's go Frank Bodani and then John Sauber.
Hi, Drew. Good morning. Going back to Julian Fleming, what have you maybe learned from him specifically? Anything the past few weeks working closely with him? And I saw where at one point you said something about how he can do a lot of different things most receivers aren't willing to do. And I was wondering if you could just talk about those 2 points.
Yeah, I think just the things I've learned from Julian are more of like how receivers see coverages and how they're plan pre-snap changes based off leverage and coverage and that sort of thing. So I think that's been very valuable for me, just kind of getting more on the same page with those guys, just in general, not only him, but all the receivers in that room. And then I think obviously receivers want to catch the ball in space. Like that's why they come here to, get the ball in space and in the perimeter, make catches downfield. But we always talk about we have to earn the right to throw the ball downfield as an offense. And that starts with blocking because you have to have a balanced offense in terms of the run and pass game. So I think just blocking on the perimeters, something that most receivers probably don't want to do. But I think specifically him, Malik McClain, and Malik Mega do a great job of being very physical on the perimeter, just opening up explosive play opportunities for the offense and getting extra blocks in. And I think that those three guys specifically have really rubbed off on the rest of the room. And you can see a lot more explosive plays happening for us just because there's extra effort on the perimeter, whether it's run game or chasing down the ball or the pass catcher and creating an extra block for them to make a open lane for them. So I think those are the sort of things that I meant when I said that. And I think the whole receiving room is doing a really good job of that right now.
Let's go John Sauber and then Shane Thomas.
Hey, Drew, thanks for your time. What have you seen from Ethan Grunkemeyer so far this spring? And what has impressed you about him? Obviously, you've worked with him a lot in the past, but this is obviously a new experience for him.
Yeah, he's done a lot of good things. I think he's learning on the fly right now. He's doing a really good job of handling everything and doing a really good job of being prepared for everything and asking really good questions throughout our quarterback meetings. And he's doing a really good job right now. Obviously, he's going through that transition. He should be in high school still, obviously early enrolled, but he's doing a really good job for being a mid-year enrollee at quarterback. He's delivering the ball on time, and he's learning from the reps where he maybe made a mistake, and he knows now like the difference between college defenses and high school defenses, and it's really cool to see that, just because that natural progression from practice 1 to practice 9 has been really cool to see. And yeah, he's definitely got a bright future ahead of him.
Got time for a few more. Shane Thomas and then Seth Engel.
Hey, Drew, good morning.
Morning, how you doing?
Doing well. In games where maybe you struggled last year, you mentioned footwork a lot. How have you felt? How have you felt like that part of your game has improved? And in your mind, what does kind of the best version of Drew Allar look like moving forward in that regard?
Yeah, so regarding the footwork question, it's more of like it's definitely been more consistent for not only me, but I think the whole quarterback room in general. And I think that goes back to Coach K and Danny doing a great job of, when we have new installs, like telling us what footwork we're supposed to be using, and like that's tying into the progression, and then us just trusting our feet out there. Like when our feet says to get off something, we got to get off of it and get back to the next read. Or when our feet are saying it's open, like you're letting the ball go. So I think it's more of the trusting in our footwork, and just the footwork tying into more of the pass game and pure progression stuff that we've been doing throughout the spring. And then for me personally, like I've talked to Danny about this, especially going into the spring. Like I feel like I play at my best when I'm loose, free, and confident, and just having fun out there. And I think I've done a lot better job of that. And, I've kind of let the more competitive side of me come out this spring, talking to the offense, being more vocal leader, and then also talking to the defense. So I think that's when I play at my best, when I'm just having a lot of fun and not really thinking, kind of just going out there and playing and just being loose.
Two more. Ron Snyder or I'm sorry, Seth Engel and then Ron Snyder.
Hey, Drew, thanks for doing this. When we talked to James at the start of spring camp, excuse me, he said you looked leaner. I'm wondering where you would place your weight now, what the plan was with the strength staff, and how you feel now just physically.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm really between like 240, 243. I mean, that's the one area like off the field I really wanted to improve on this offseason, is getting more lean, and losing a little bit of weight. I know my goal is to lose a little bit more before fall camp, and I'll continue attacking that throughout spring and into the summer. But yeah, it's just really changed with like my eating habits. I think I've done a lot better job of being more consistent in that aspect, eliminating things that I shouldn't always be eating, and then like adding more things in that I should be eating. I think that's really helped me just movement wise, and then also doing a bunch of extra mobility work with the athletic trainers on our staff. I've been doing a lot more extra work in the training room and in that aspect. And I think that's helped me a lot, just be more fluid in my movement. And yeah, what did you have a second part of your question? I'm sorry, I forget it.
Just how have you felt over
Okay.
over the past few weeks?
Yeah, no, I've definitely felt really good. I definitely feel like more consistently hitting like we always talk about a 90% max velocity. I feel like I've been consistently hitting that over the past couple of weeks throughout practice, and making it happen organically, not like having to do it after practice with like our speed check-in with the strength coaches. So I think it's definitely shown up in that aspect, and I definitely continue to work on it going into the season.
Last question, Ron Snyder.
Hey, Drew, I know you just talked about mobility and like your diet and stuff, but in terms of a mentality, after you have a year experience so far as a starter, how are you going to go into those bigger games differently this season in terms of your preparation or adjustments you make during the game, whether it's, West Virginia to start the season or Ohio State or some of the West Coast games?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm always going to approach every game like it's the biggest game on our schedule, just because that's the mentality we need to have as not only an offense but a whole team. One thing that I was very happy with last year was my preparation for every game. Like there wasn't anything I didn't feel uncomfortable with going into the game plan. But I think for me personally, it's more of like just being calmer in the moment and not having to force or not trying to force things to happen, like just letting everything happen more organically, not trying to make the big play happen and things of that nature. And I think really it's going to show this year with like Danny and Coach K and just all the work they've been putting in with the whole offense. And I think the whole offense has had a really good spring. So I think that's just only going to help everybody's performance overall.
All right, thanks, Drew. Appreciate you guys.